Welcome back to the channel. This week we're going to look at how to spray Envirolak 170 out of the Apollo 7700. Let's get to it. Welcome back. So this week we're going to look at probably the most difficult primer to spray, which is the Envirolak 170. And the reason for that is because it has the highest solids of any product on the market. And generally, the higher the solids, the harder it is to atomize because you have a lot of fillers in there that you have to break up. And those fillers are harder to break up than generally resins are. One thing I will say about Envirolak is they are the best when it comes to additives that you can add to your products and make them work in different systems. They have pretty much everything. I would suggest going to their website and pulling down the menu and looking at additives, and they have a whole list of things that can help you out with their products. So, since we're dealing with a fixed pressure, we're going to talk about reducer and the retarder. We're going to see how they affect the viscosity, and then I'll tell you kind of the difference between the two. So with that, let's get to spraying. Talk about the Envirolak reducers that we have here. The first one is the ELRX 010, and then they have a retarder, which is the ELRX 114, and this is straight butyl carbitol. So what I did is I took my Zon cup, Zon 3, and I measured the viscosity. We were like at 3 minutes by itself. Once we put 10% of the ELRX 110, it went down to 40. And then on this one, instead of using straight retarder, I did like an 80-20 mix, and it was roughly the same. Now, what would be the difference in these? This one is going to dry slower than this one. So with the 170 that we're going to shoot today, there's really no need to go to this. You can basically just stay with the reducer, and I'm going to show you without any reducer is what it's like spraying out of the 7700, and then with reducer, and then we're going to take it and put it on a piece and put it under the light so you can see the difference. Now you can do this up to 10%. I wouldn't go any further than 10% because you're going to get super thin. Now you are cutting some of the solid content out of the product, so you have to know that when you start reducing things. But believe me, at 10%, this stuff sprays amazing because it's going to lay down so smooth that you have very little sanding to do. Okay, so I have my Apollo set up with a 2.0 and a C cap, and I would recommend you go watching my other videos if you want to change your cap, but this is just what's on the gun, so this is what I'm going to use. And we're going to spray the first one out with no reduction, one with reduction, and then a final with a smaller 1.3 needle, so you can see how that changes the atomization. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to zoom in here close, and you can see the atomization of each one of these. So what I have is the first one is no reduction with the 2.0, 10% reduction with the dipropylene glycol, and then I ran a 1.3 here. So you can see this first one, we're getting splatters absolutely everywhere. So that's not gonna work. When you see something like that, you've got to reduce either with water or something. Okay, so now we come down here. Now you see that we have very tight pattern, very little splatters, a little bit here and there. And then when we come down to here, we're pretty much perfect. Like basically we have nothing. So, but again, what you can do is you don't have to necessarily drop down to a 1.3. You could use the 2.0 and just tighten off your fluid. Now that means that you'll be moving slower, but if you want a little bit tighter atomization, dial your fluid control in some, or you can change the needle and have it out the same as you typically do. Okay, I just shot this panel. On this side, I shot the material reduced, and on this side, I shot the material unreduced. And you can see all the orange peel and everything you're getting, whereas this, it laid out pretty much like glass. This is the first coat on MDF. What we're gonna do is let this dry down, and we're gonna look at the differences between the two. And this is pretty typical for really any system. The tighter you can lay it down, the less sand you're gonna have, the less pitting, etc., etc. And that's just very, very common with these super high solids primers. You have to get them thin enough that you can break up all the fillers that are in them. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take a look at this under an inspection light. That's with the reducer in it. This is without. You can see the massive difference in what you would have to sand. Now you could obviously sand this out, but this is what you're looking for. All right, so my final recommendations on this is that we like this at 10%. I think that you're gonna get the best atomization that you can get. And then it's just a personal preference for you if you want to use, you know, a 1.3 or a 2.0, or if you want to switch over to that B cap. And if you haven't seen my other videos, I'll leave a link in the description below for those, so that you can go back and watch those that we've done on the air caps for that and the needle nozzle sizes. So next week we're gonna do the T9000, the 200 series, and the 100 series from Envirolak, and that will wrap it up for Envirolak with the 7700. Hopefully these videos have been helpful. We'll see you next time, and remember, test, don't guess. We'll catch you next week.